Another year, another first-round matchup against the Tampa Bay Lightning. How do the Leafs match up? What do we think about the lines that Sheldon Keefe has put out in practice ahead of Game 1? What are our ideal lines? What are our biggest concerns? How can the Leafs defeat the Tampa Bay Lightning and win the first playoff series with this group of guys? We will be breaking that all down, as well as our series predictions in this video. What's up, Leafs fans, and welcome back to Leafs Digest. As promised, a series preview, Leafs versus Lightning first round rematch of last year, and I was going to do this one on my own, and I thought, you know what, it's probably more fun to get someone else in here, maybe get some differing opinions. So today, joined by Jason Cooper of the Rink Rat Report. You can follow them at Rink Rat Report, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok as well. You can go and find their podcast on all podcasting platforms covering all things Toronto Maple Leafs. Jason and his co-host will be joining us here on the Leafs Digest channel throughout the playoffs, breaking games down, doing watch-alongs and stuff like that. So much more of Jason and the Rink Rat Report to come here on the Leafs Digest channel. But Jason, I mean, before we even get into the topics that we have listed for today, oh, I guess I should plug it as well, at Takes by Jay on Twitter. You want to follow Jason himself. But before we get into the topics for today, we have a bunch listed out. How are you feeling? Just give me your thoughts, feelings, excited, nervous. What's going on? What's going through your head?
I'm so nervous. I think this is the most nervous I've ever been because it really feels like this is the inflection point, right? Like we've kind of been doing this for 6-7 years now, and we've experienced the Dubas era. Dubas is in his last year of his deal, and even you and I have had conversations going back and forth on like what they should do in it. We honestly don't even know. There's just so many factors that depend on this series right now. There's so many things, like our offseason, winning this series and losing this series is going to mean a lot of things for this offseason. So I'm nervous in that sense, but I'm also excited because playoff hockey's back and like it's the best time of the year. Like, come on, we love our playoff hockey here. And yeah, I'm happy to be on the show as well. Super excited to be doing the live streams with you and all that stuff. I'm excited. I'm just excited that the atmosphere is back, but also incredibly nervous because, as you know, the monkey on our back exists.
Yeah, like I think I probably have the same feelings going into the playoffs here, basically just sitting here going, you know what, I'm super excited. I love playoff hockey. I know you're just a fan of the NHL as well, not just outside of the Leafs too. So it's like playoff hockey in general. It's the best time of the year watching this. The first round is the best. Like you take March Madness and put it on steroids for a hockey fan. Like that's what this is. So I'm extremely excited, but then there's always that feeling in the back of your head of like, well, we are still Leafs fans. So that just looms like this dark gray cloud over you permanently. And I mean, you and I have friends here who are Habs fans and you just hear them. They don't even care. These guys are in the lottery for Connor Bedard and they're sitting there. They still have a leg to stand on to chirp you. It's like, what are we doing? So I know, just get me to a second round, but
please.
Let's talk about these things that are going on with the Leafs. We will break down lines, where we're at with those concerns, maybe some X factors, as well as our series predictions to close this one out. And maybe these are things that can help us over the hump. So first and foremost here, let's get into reacting to the lines that we saw posted by Mark Masters the other day. So Game 1 line reactions. We did see Masters tweet this out. These were the final lines at practice the other day. So a brief rundown of what we did see. Obviously, ahead of Game 1, this is what was final at practice. Bunting, Matthews, Marner. Tavares, O'Reilly, Nylander, second line. Kerfoot, Achari, Yarncroke. Zach Aston, Reese. David Kampf, Sam Lafferty. And then in gray sweaters, Nyes and Simmons. That is your forward group. Let's start there. Forward group, you see this come out. What are your initial thoughts on the forward group that we saw out of the final practice?
Initially, I'm shocked, but based on what we saw down the stretch from the trade deadline, I feel like we shouldn't be that shocked. I think the biggest thing to note is that Nyes isn't in the lineup. And after the first game I saw him play, I kind of didn't expect him to make the playoff Game 1 lineup. But that game against the Lightning, in my heart, I'm watching that kid play and I'm saying he needs to be it. With that said, I fully respect what Keefe is doing here, and I completely understand why maybe he's sitting Nyes in the first game. And I don't doubt that we might see him draw in later on in the series, but like to give respect to Zach Aston Reese, who I would have had out, like he's played really well down the stretch too. He's kind of been with the team the entire year. He's a little bit more trustworthy than Matthew Nyes. So I can see that I can see them scratching Nyes over him. Lafferty, on the other hand, not really impressed with his play down the stretch. I know he was slightly injured, so it's just I would like to see Nyes in, but I understand where they're coming from. The biggest thing, though, for me is that second line. I think we were on here for the trade deadline, and we talked about the strength of having 3 strong centers. And it's just interesting that Sheldon Keefe wants to kind of go away from that and have Ryan O'Reilly, JT, and Willie on one line. What are your thoughts on that line?
Yeah, so, man, okay, so let's get into that line there, the second line and the deployments of these guys. We talked about it when we did the trade deadline reaction. If anybody forgot, Jason did join me on that show, so we did break that all down. My initial thing was like, you know what? I don't have a problem with Tavares, O'Reilly, Nylander when he first got here. But then what I saw out of O'Reilly playing on a separate line, basically since he returned, I would say, is when it really started to show through, because I think before he got injured, he was still up with the second line. Like, there wasn't really too much consistency going on there. We didn't get to see a lot of it. When they switched him off, to me, it was like this is what needs to happen moment. I looked at the depth, as you mentioned. You go from Matthews to Tavares to O'Reilly. Tell me how Tampa matches their third line against anybody playing with Ryan O'Reilly. Like, there's no center on Tampa who's going to comfortably, like, yes, they can match and through shifts or maybe a period you're going to go up and go like, okay, even is a wash that time. But like, consistently through a 7-game series, I don't think that's a match like a matchup you're going to be comfortable with as John Cooper. So to see Keefe do this, I don't know how you feel about it from this standpoint, but I got flashbacks of when Keefe goes panic mode in game 6 and 7 of last year's series or Montreal's series, where he goes, we need all the big boys up front, overload the front. And I think he's big braining himself to an extent here, putting these guys up there. I think it's a little bit too much. I understand if it's the last 10 minutes of a game, last 5 minutes of a game, you need to hold on to a lead, or you need to score a goal and it's tied, or you're down 1. Okay, I can get it there, but to genuinely plan ahead of time, this is the lineup, like, I kind of get this concern in the pit of my stomach of like, I think Keefe is just overthinking this. Like, I don't know, is that a ridiculous take? Like, where you at in terms of where Keefe's thought process here?
I don't think it's that ridiculous. I will say one thing that does hurt John Tavares is his foot speed. And looking at Tampa, they have quick centers in their top 6. Cirelli and Point are both incredibly quick, and if John Tavares is playing center against them, I'm a little worried about the foot speed there and the defensive acumen to be able to defend properly against those guys. Now, of course, Ryan O'Reilly isn't the fastest player either, but I think positionally he can kind of recover in those areas and be a little bit better defensively. But I don't think that was just to play a little bit of devil's advocate.
Yeah, but also trying to kind of rationalize to your point, though, like, you don't necessarily have to play him as a 3C. You know what I mean? Like, in that spot, I agree with what you're saying, but like you kind of like don't, because O'Reilly's not really a 3C. Like, he's
exactly.
So,
I see your point, but I just slight pushback for me there. I mean, the line looked pretty good. Like, John Tavares and Ryan O'Reilly worked with William Nylander, and they worked with Ryan O'Reilly. I'm not a fan of John Tavares and William Nylander. I feel like they never have been able to work together fully. I think that they're better off. Our team is better off when they're separate than when they're together. But I think the biggest thing we're going to see, I don't think we're going to see the same lines from game 1 and 2 to game 3 and 4. I think the matchups are a big emphasis here for Sheldon Keefe, and I think in you saying that I think that might be him galaxy braining himself out of this, because it really depends how much you want to weigh these matchups, right? So I feel like I didn't even answer your question there, but that's kind of my thought process here with these lines and what I'm seeing here. But yeah, like, I'm comfortable. Like, I thought I would be not as comfortable with our third line. Our third line looks like, I feel like Kerfoot, Yarncrook, and Achari can match up pretty well against their third line. So I'm in your camp with, I think we should split them up into 3Cs. I'm gonna give it some time and let it see how it works. So,
well,
Yeah.
Here's a question for you, though. I don't mind on paper Kerfoot, Achari, Yarncroke. Look at the season Yarncroke had. I think it's fine. I really love Achari. Like, I love what this guy brings. I think this guy's a playoff player. Like, this is a guy to me that I think could be one of those. We look back after maybe round 1, 2, however far you possibly get here, when you say that guy was an important piece in this stretch, in this playoffs, in this run, however far it goes. Where I'm going to go to you on this, and it's Yarncroke had very good numbers through the regular season. The majority of that came playing with, or the better of his analytical numbers, I guess I should say, than maybe on his on paper numbers of like, here's his stats. They came playing in the top 6. His improvements as a player is drastic from bottom 6 to top 6, whether it be the players that he's playing with, the matchups that he gets. Maybe he just feels better or more elevated in those situations and plays up to a higher standard. I don't know what it is, but putting him down in the bottom 6, there was obvious drop-off in his game through the regular season. Hey, maybe this guy just becomes a playoff player, and it doesn't matter what line he could play on the 4th line. He could play 3 minutes a night, and he's going to be incredible in those 3 minutes. I don't know, but as far as it is right now, that's kind of where I looked at, and I'm like, man, he was so good in the top 6. I feel like it's a little bit of a disservice to drop him down to the bottom 6, and I have a slight concerns on that in terms of, okay, we pushed him down. Is his play going to drop?
That's so fair. I like, those are great points too, and I think I'm in the same camp here with you as well. I think I didn't even consider that. Yeah, his play definitely didn't look as good outside the top 6. But so where would you have him then? If you were to have him in the top 6, then I guess that would just be the separation of John Tavares and
Yes.
Ryan O'Reilly, and kind of spreading it out like that. And instead of playing it like a true top 6 and bottom 6, you'd play it as like almost a top 9 where you split those lines evenly.
Yes.
Is that kind of what you're going for here?
Yeah, and we'll get into like the specifics. We will give our ideal lines, but yeah, that's kind of where I would go, is like some variation of splitting those guys, moving them around, and putting guys into different spots, where you're going to have that little bit more depth, and maybe you could slide him up into a top position, because I think you do that, and then it just builds a little bit more depth. Now, like you said, we're going at top 9 instead of a 1, 2, 3, 4, because 1, 2, 2, 3 is a drop, and then
Massive.
Like if you go through the 9, I think it's a little bit more comfortable that way. But yeah, that's kind of where I go with that. Is there anything else for you on the forwards here, as the lines that we saw, that you have to say about what we're looking at in terms of forward lines?
Yeah, like I'm going to reiterate this again. I think that the lines, I'm almost confident the lines we see right now are going to be different than the lines we see in Game 3. I really think Sheldon Keefe likes to play a lot into these matchups. And
he loves the blender, man. He loves the blender.
Exactly. And I honestly, I have a weird feeling that maybe we're going to see three strong centers on the road. I'm hoping. Maybe that's just my copium.
Optimism.
But but yeah, that's one thing I'm looking for. And then also just straight matchup. Our top 6, maybe I'm afraid to say this, but our top 6 is a lot better than their top 6. The way it's set up right now, it's way better than their top 6. So I wonder maybe, again, if this is just Sheldon Keefe, like you said, overloading. But I mean, can you, like, these guys are amazing. So
yeah,
I'm not afraid of any line, any matchup against these two lines would have to play against. I'm not afraid of that matchup. So yeah.
Well, my only like final thought on this is, and it's something I kind of considered here as well, as like, okay, the Boston game, the final game that they play Boston in the regular season, essentially the top 6 kind of canceled each other out in that game. Like, neither, obviously, other than Pasta's overtime goal to win it, aside from that, neither top 6 really dominated the other one. It was pretty even. They both played pretty well. Just neither one had production on in terms of goals and points. Now, if you go down to the bottom 6 there, my only thing is, like, what happens in a situation with Tampa if with these lines as is, if somehow the top 6 just scratch each other off? I think you end up in a spot here. I don't want to like do doomsday on it, but like I think this bottom 6 is much better than bottom 6 we've seen in previous years, significantly better than last year, especially in terms of playoff hockey. My only thing is like, all right, now let's say we have a slight edge in the bottom. In a game-to-game basis, and you're going to go a slight edge on that, maybe a guy like Vasilevsky in the other end for Tampa is just enough of an edge the other way to push them over the top, where you're basically just saying we're canceling everybody out on forward, and now we're going to go into these low grind games, and you have a guy in net for Tampa like Vasilevsky. That's a little bit of a cautionary thing for me, where I'm looking at like, hey, I agree with you. I think ours are better, but you end up in a one-game situation where if you take it game by game, maybe they cancel each other out that game, and now you're just going to go straight goaltending duel. I love Samsonov, but like all likelihood, we're going to lose that goaltending battle because Vasilevsky is one of, if not the best goaltenders in the world. Like, that's the only thing for me looking at it. But yeah, it's kind of my final thoughts on the forwards. All right. Let's get to the defense. We'll look at what we saw out of practice the other day. Again, we'll break these down, and then we'll get into our ideal lines after. So, defense here. First pairing, Jake McCabe, TJ Brody. I think that's no surprise. Morgan Riley, Luke Schenn, Mark Giordano, Justin Hall. And then we see as the fourth pair, quote-unquote, Gustafsson, Liljegren, and the extra man, Timmins. Thoughts on the defense right away? I personally don't have too many thoughts. I'll tell you straight up. I expected this. I think I like it. I'm fine with it. The only thing I would say is I know this is going to be like an insane thing. I flip-flop Riley Schenn and Gio Hall and play Riley Schenn as third pair, and there's nobody else in that pairing or in that D group who's going to play number one power play, so just load Riley's minutes onto the power play. That's what I would do. But like in terms of pairings, yep, this is what I expected. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, and I think we actually nailed these on the trade deadline episode. We we said these exact lines going into the playoffs. We said maybe Liljegren could edge out Hall, but we saw down the stretch once
poorly. Yeah.
He did us no service there. Yeah, so
yeah.
I know the viewers here over at Leafs Digest aren't the biggest fans of Justin Hall, but to be fair to him, he has played his way into the lineup. Yes. Over the last stretch of games. We gotta listen. I love ripping on the guy, but you also have to give him credit where credit is due. I'm not saying he's amazing, but he's played better, and we don't need him to do too much. We just need him to be steady. That's all we're asking out of him.
Just don't lose games.
Exactly. Just don't lose us games. So I fully agree with what you said there as well about the Schenn Riley pairing. I think pairings are just like the way that they list the pairings. I think that's just like for show. I mean, if you look over at Tampa, they have Cernak and Cole as their third pairing.
Right.
That's not their third pairing. That's their shutdown pairing, and they're going to play a ton of minutes against our best lines. If that's what you want, if that's what you consider a third pairing, then fine. But like the pairings don't really mean much. But I agree with you. Riley Schenn should be playing the least amount of minutes at 5-on-5 of all these guys, and Riley should be loaded up on the power play because I just think that. That's where the value is going to come. It's like if Riley can help us out on the power play, that's massive. I just worry about his deficiencies defensively in the in the playoffs. It's a big worry for me. I'd rather have two stalwart defensive pairings, let them eat as many minutes as possible at 5-on-5, and then kind of go from there. What are your thoughts though on Luke Schenn in general? Because I've had this conversation with a bunch of friends and my brother as well who loves Elise. Just him over Liljegren or just. Like, how do you feel about Luke Schenn being in?
Well, I mean, I think that if they play it the way that you and I anticipate it to, or would like it to be played, where it's minimal 5-on-5 minutes and you can put him in a penalty killing role where he just has to slap the puck out of the zone, or you keep it down on the 5-on-5 and it's, okay, make a simple breakout pass or do what he says where every now and then put it off the glass. Like, I'm fine with that because if he's playing minimal 5-on-5 minutes, then you're not sitting out there going, oh my God, dude, put it on somebody's tape. I think it's minimized in those. I'm fine with him, and I understand there's also some other factors here. Yes, analytically, he's probably not a darling. But I think that there's some inherent value in having a guy that has this like energy and connection to the city and the team be here and be in the lineup and be around it. I think it's an extra little factor. And you saw in that Tampa game, that guy dummied Pat Maroon. Like, Pat Maroon got to throw. And when I say, like, got to throw, like, I don't just mean, oh, Pat Maroon didn't throw a punch. Like, no. Pat Maroon could not throw a punch because Luke Schenn manhandled him. And you're going to have a scrum after basically every whistle. This is what Tampa wants to do. You're going to have guys like Kucherov kicking TJ Brody's feet out. You're going to have Corey Perry falling into your goalie. And reality is Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Kerfoot, like, aside from really Aston Reese, Achari, maybe O'Reilly would probably jump in there. Simmons, if he gets in the lineup, I don't think it's likely that he does. There's not really anybody else here who's going to do that. I mean, McCabe, he will, but like, that's not their nature, if that makes sense. Like, that's not who they are. Luke Shen, that's his nature. Like, he's going to go and rip your head off. You see situations where he's grabbing guys out of the pile every single time. And I think especially in a series against Tampa where they are a little bit prissy at times, where they're going to jab you and then get in your face after the whistle, to have somebody like that, I think it's like old blockhead, like hockey mindset, but to have one guy like that, I think it's fine. And they just have to play him like you and I want them played, where it's minimal 5-on-5, go block shots on the penalty kill, and just don't be a defensive liability more than anything.
Yeah. I fully agree with that. Because I'm a big analytics guy. I like to look at Corsi numbers. I like to look at expected goal numbers. Yeah. I like to look at GSVA, Dom's model.
Yeah,
I like
you're
to look
my
at
analytics guy. For people who watch the show, I just want to clarify. For people who watch the show, a lot of times when I ask for things or when I bring things up, a lot of times it's Jason who's sending them to me, or I'm asking him for things or asking him for opinions on stuff. So he's like sending me things from behind the scenes. So that's where some of this comes from.
Yeah, so I love looking at all these numbers, and I think there's a space in the middle, right, for looking at these numbers and getting these guys who maybe don't have as beautiful numbers, but have these intangibles that you talk about. And yeah. I'm starting to come around to that more and more each year. And this year, I'm fully sold on Luke Shen being in this lineup because, again, like you said, he manhandled Pat Maroon. Pat Maroon could have done whatever he wanted last year in the series because Clifford was out, got suspended. He wasn't going to play at all. He was too much of a liability for us. Simmons, his legs were gone. He's just not the player he used to be. And after that, like, we really had no one that could neutralize him. With Luke Shen in, it'll just give all the Tampa guys just 1 second to pause and think, like, do I want to go into this scrap? Do I want to potentially get my face eaten by the human eraser? Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then on top of that, after seeing what happened to Michael Bunting in the scrum, I think this is like massive value for Luke Shen. I know when I say Michael Bunting in the scrum, I'm talking about the Tampa game where 3 guys jumped JT and he got Michael Bunting came in to help his captain and somehow he got a penalty for it. I listen, I don't doubt we're going to see calls like that, and refereeing is nothing we can control. It's better just to not worry about it than to like focus on it. So use Luke Shen to neutralize those things.
Well, and you talked about the D on Tampa. Like, you're telling me that Chernak's not going to grab guys after every single whistle in the offensive zone. Like, it's going to happen. Exactly. So, I mean, no, he's not the perfect player. But, yeah, I think some of that physicality is nice to have. And reality is, I was very hesitant on him coming here before he did. And once I saw him start to get a little bit more comfortable and start to play with Riley a little bit more, and you see the guys start to, like, love this guy and what he can bring, it's like, okay, you know what? I think that there's extra value here outside of that. Just don't be terrible. And I don't think he is. I don't think he is terrible. He's not the guy that's going to push us over the top in terms of actual defensive metrics and play, but the intangibles, I think, are important there. So, I'm fine with them. But goaltending, Samsonov, Wall, Samsonov starting, I think this is expected. Like, this, it is what it is. I don't have anything to say about this. I don't know where you're at. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I hope Matt Murray is healthy. I hope he's okay, but I'm really happy that Joseph Wall is backing us up instead of Matt Murray. I just have had more faith in him throughout, and who knows? I think Samsonov looks good. And hopefully he stays healthy and hopefully he's able to play throughout the series. But if not, if there's ever anything that could maybe make Samsonov get pulled, maybe he has a bad game, I think Wall could be like a black ace, like Binnington was for St. Louis. I think he could.
Murray was for Pittsburgh.
Murray was for Pittsburgh. Patrick Waugh back in the day. Like this is. I really love Wall, and I think that's pretty much all there is to say on it. I think Samsonov's their goalie. I don't see him coming out at all. But if he is a little banged up, so I think what I'm trying to say here is that he is banged up. If he's hurt, I think we'll be okay. That's all I'm trying to say. So, yeah.
All right, same page there. Next thing, I think defense we're in line with, goaltending we're in line with, but the thing we have some maybe ways we'd want to shake this up ourselves is the forwards. So let's get to our ideal lines here in the playoffs that we would like to see. How do you want to see the lineup shake out? Let's go with the first line. Bunting, Matthews, Marner. Are you good with this line? Would you change it at all?
Most dominant line in the series last year. I don't know how you can change it. Best line in hockey last year. They kind of went away from it a little bit this year. They were back together and they look amazing. So no, I would not touch this line at all.
Yeah. Okay. Same page, not changing it. Line 2. Currently, Tavares, O'Reilly, Nylander. Talk to me about what you're changing here, because I know you're changing this a little bit.
I am definitely changing it, and I probably tipped my hand a little bit earlier. Like I said before, I like going 3C, so obviously Ryan O'Reilly, you're coming off that second line. John Tavares, you're moving to center. And then I also said that I don't like William Nylander and John Tavares together. I just think, unfortunately, in the playoffs, I don't like defensive liability, and I think they're just not responsible enough defensively to overcome how good they are offensively. They are fantastic offensive players. Do not get that mistaken. So I think for me, I would like to see JT centering Yarncrook and Kerfoot. That's what I would do, and that's who I would. That's how I would roll my second line. I know you have slightly different second line, so
yeah. Well, I like that actually. I don't have a problem with that. I think if I do that though, I switch where you're going to go with the third line and make the third line the second line. But again, it plays to what you and I said. It's a top 9 and not a
top
2-3. So yeah, but I actually don't mind that. I think that's actually pretty good idea. Mine's slightly different. Reason being, I know you don't like them together. William Nylander was our most consistent technically forward throughout the last 2 series. And in the series against Montreal, we saw this guy completely change his game and elevate. I just take O'Reilly off just like you did. I put Yarncroke on the second line. I think he adds value into the top 6. We saw him play there all year. The other thing is defensive responsibility. I agree with you that Tavares and Nylander don't necessarily have that the same way. I think Yarncroke does. I think he has ability to kind of add to that. I think he can bring some of that to it. He's a fast guy. He can score goals. You saw him put up 20 this year. I don't think Kerfoot necessarily has as much offensive ability. I think they're relatively the same player. I think Yarncroke can kind of take that over the edge with the offense. So I put him up on the second line. I think he's probably okay playing off wing there. If not, Nylander can play the off wing. So, yeah, I just put Yarncroke up there with Tavares as well. I just leave Nylander. And then I basically say, hey, Yarncroke's going to be the guy to help you and to move his feet. And that's just my change there with that second line.
I don't hate that at all. The Swedish connection there is it's a thing you like to see. So, I'm comfy with that as well.
Okay. Third line. I know I'm going to ruffle some feathers with mine. I don't know what yours is yet, so I'm going to go to you first. What is your third line? O'Reilly's down on the third line now. Who's playing with him?
Yeah, so O'Reilly, obviously on that third line. But again, this is where me and Sheldon Keefe differ. William Nylander, you're locked in there on that third line. And guess what? My favorite line watching that Tampa game, Matthew Knies, you're in the game. Give me Knies, O'Reilly, William Nylander. That line was electric. And I really think if the Leafs go far and this is a line, I think that is the reason why they go far, is that this third, air quotes, third line will help accelerate them through the playoffs because, man, they look really good together. And just the way that the style of play that all 3 players have, I feel like they mesh so well together. So Nylander's such a good puck transporter, loves having the puck on his stick, and is a great shooter. Knies is able to be a net front presence, even though he's young and he's very, very green in the league. He was really good at finding those soft spots in front of the net and creating screens for the goalie. And Ryan O'Reilly, I don't think whenever people talk about Ryan O'Reilly, they always talk about his 2-way game, but no one ever talks about his passing ability. He can pass the puck really, really well. He has really, really good underlying metrics, shot assists, and chance assists. He has some of the best shot assists and chance assists in the league. All that means is him passing the puck, someone shooting the puck. The quality of those shots are always really high. So he's really good at moving the puck into quality areas and helping his teammates get better scoring chances. I think this line is a match made in heaven, and I'm praying we see this line in the playoffs.
I very much agree with what you say about that line. I like them a lot when they played together. They were together for that goal William Nylander scored for his 40th against the Rangers there too. So, yeah. You know what? You've almost... See, this is the problem. I like that line so much, but I just am not as in love with the Kerfoot, Tavares, Yarncroke line. So that's like my only hesitancy is because it's like, for me, I'm like, oh, if this line plays together, that line probably has to play together. So that's the only issue for me, but I actually do love this line probably as much as you do. I'm not going to ruffle feathers as much as I thought. We're on the same page here. Matthew Nyes, buddy, you should be in game one. Matthew Nyes, Ryan O'Reilly, Noel Acciari. That's my third line. Look, Acciari, is he the most offensively capable player? No, he's not, but he's capable of scoring goals, and he is a menace. This guy finishes every single check. He wins battles. He blocks shots. Him and O'Reilly together, give me some St. Louis connection there. And then as far as what you said about Nyes, I don't have anything to add to that. And even on top of that, what you said about him and O'Reilly playing together, like, match made in heaven for me too. So I think those two guys, and then you just add a guy like Acciari who is just going to go and bother the hell out of people, loosen pucks, win battles, give them the puck so they can do things offensively in there, and then you tell that guy go stand in front and clear ice and bang home rebounds. I think O'Reilly and Nyes are going to be able to create enough offensively that Acciari could walk away being like, man, this guy scored 3 goals in the first round, like 4 goals in the first round. This guy could be a contributor. Obviously, high bar I just set there, but you know what I mean. It's one of those ones where you would walk away and be like, hey, okay, yeah, fair enough. But that's my third line.
Just quickly, I want to say, if that third line would be the biggest bitch to play against if you're Tampa, just because the amount of pressure and the amount of forechecking ability this line has, and not just mindless forechecking, like very defensively responsible. There's tons of times where Acciari will pull up and be that 3C in the, or sorry, 3F3 in the zone to make sure that they're not able to get that breakout pass. But you're looking at some big dudes there. Those are big guys, and like, just having them hammer you relentlessly on the forecheck, that's going to be annoying to play against. I like that line.
Well, and this too. Think about this. You go down there. Okay, you have now, they forecheck you. They get the puck back. Maybe they don't score, but they go down there. All 3 of those boys can cycle the puck. They can skate. They can ward off hits. They can ward off checks. They can play physically. They're going to keep the puck down there. Okay, now you are through 45 seconds of these guys, and Acciari goes off, and Austin Matthews comes out over the boards for him. And then Nyes goes off, and Marner comes, and then O'Reilly. Okay, now you're even out there with O'Reilly, Matthews, and Marner coming out with these guys. And then O'Reilly goes off bunting. Like, you're going to end up with relentless pressure where now you're tired because this line has hit you. They won every battle. They cycled the puck extremely well for 45 a minute, and now the top line's coming back out there. I don't see a third line for Tampa Bay that's able to match up against these guys skill-wise or physically there. I just think it creates a lot of problems. Realistically, I think it creates a lot of problems for Tampa. So I hope we see some variation of mine and or yours in the playoffs here. I don't know. Maybe Sheldon keeps big-braining himself on this line as well, but we'll see. And final line we'll go to, fourth line. I think it kind of slots itself in relatively similar. I think you and I probably will have similar ones, but go ahead, your fourth line.
Yeah, I just have Acciari, Kampf, and Lafferty. Slash Zach Aston Reese. Honestly, Lafferty and Zach Aston Reese kind of are interchangeable for me. The only reason why I have Lafferty in right now is because I think he brings more of a speed element to that line and a better transition game than Zach Aston Reese would. Other than that, I like Zach Aston Reese's game way better. So the only reason why I have Lafferty in over Zach Aston Reese is just the fit, I think, with Kampf and Acciari is better with Lafferty than it is with Zach Aston Reese. So but I think any way you really cut up this line, it works. And I think it's going to, like, no matter who you have on this fourth line, as long as I love Simmons, but as long as it's not Simmons, I think this line will blow Tampa's fourth line out of the water.
Yeah. I agree. I had Aston Reese instead of Lafferty, but I understand your point. The only thing for me was just like what we saw out of Aston Reese from the trade deadline, basically the second that Acciari got here, it kind of seemed like he looked at Acciari and was like, whoa, like I'm kind of like you, and like I can play that way where maybe he hadn't never seen that during his career in the NHL. Guys like on his team, obviously see it when you play against him or whatever, but maybe it's just like that guy in the locker room where it's like I could kind of be like that, and I think he kind of brought that in. I think you go him, Kampf, and Kerfoot on the fourth line. Obviously, I've sent Kerfoot down to the fourth, whereas you had him on second with JT, and I understand why in that situation, but I just kind of slot him in where based on the third line that I put together. But yeah, I just put Aston Reese, Kampf, Kerfoot. I think you kind of go defensively minded there. Don't ask too much out of them. Kerfoot can be the guy to kind of create offense on that line if it's needed. Aston Reese is just the guy who's going to go bang bodies, forecheck hard, just block shots if you got to. It's just that, like, okay, all right, dude, just play playoff hockey. That's kind of what I'm asking out of him. But, I mean, you know, I do understand why your line is the way it is. I don't necessarily disagree. I just wasn't as impressed with Lafferty. Maybe this is just a little bit of recency bias in terms of, like, I was very impressed with Aston Reese, and I was actually a little bit underwhelmed with Lafferty. And it's not like I had high expectations of him. It was more just like, you haven't really kind of done it for me over the last little while. So that was the difference in my fourth line there. But either way, I like our lines. I like our lines a little bit better than what Sheldon Keefe had. I'm not going to lie, but we aren't the coaches. We aren't the coaches.
I was just gonna say just one thing. I like how you had that line set up, and I think if you have Aston Reese Kampf, I think I'd rather have Kerfoot in over Lafferty too, because again, that speed. I think Kerfoot is better at providing that speed for Lafferty. I think having that one guy who can transition the puck on the fourth line is important. That's like my biggest thing. So, but yeah, I like your line too. Like I think I like your lines better because I think Zach Aston Reese deserves a spot in the lineup, and yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for bouncing him, so I like your lines better than mine.
Well, that was the only thing is I'm like, I think he's deserved it, and it's not like Lafferty has done anything to like not deserve it in terms of like play himself out of it. It's just like, do you deserve it as much as that guy? Maybe that's my mindset of it, and I don't think he does. Like for me personally, I think Aston Reese really deserves it. I really loved his game the last little while, but all right. Let's get to the concerns and kind of X factors here of this playoffs. Concerns for the Leafs. What are some things that could make them lose this series? I jotted down some notes. I have some questions about this Leafs lineup. I'm going to go first and foremost, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I don't have too much to go into on it. My biggest concern right now is Sheldon Keefe. I'm worried about him going head-to-head with John Cooper. I think John Cooper is a very, very, very smart, meticulous, well-thought-out, well-spoken, well-planned coach. Even after that game that Leafs and Tampa played, I don't think for a second that John Cooper believes a word of what he said after of that was an exhibition game. There was no intensity. I don't think that at all. I think that was him trying to send a message to Toronto and basically say, oh, you guys cared about this game. That meant so much to you. It didn't mean anything to us. And he's trying to put that out publicly because he's meticulously thinking about this, putting that out into the world. The other thing is, does John Cooper go to the blender? Yeah, occasionally he turns on the ninja and whips things up, but he's not going into this one and making soup on the other end. Like, he's turning it on and just blending things up a little tiny bit and then shoot it back out there. Sheldon Keefe will turn on the blender and then turn it on again and turn it on again and turn it on again, and to the point where we're all sitting here like, dude, every line that we're seeing out there is different at this point. And I think sometimes he just does it to himself because he just overthinks. And I have concerns about Sheldon Keefe. How is he going to deploy things? Is he going to panic? Is he going to just big brain himself? Is he going to get in spots where he just gets outmatched when you get into a spot in Tampa? That's kind of where I'm at with Sheldon Keefe. I know I said I didn't have too much to say, but kind of got going. I don't know. Are you concerned about Keefe here too?
Yeah, so you sent me a list of like what our outline is going to be for today's show. And under concerns, you wrote a couple things down. One of them was not coaching, but number one on my list is coaching as well. So I find that hilarious. Okay. But yeah, I am super concerned about the coaching matchup. Listen, we if we were to break it down like coach versus coach, we're smoked. Like we get smoked out of the water. John Cooper is one of the best head coaches in the NHL right now. He's a lawyer. Like that's all you need to know. He knows what to say and when to say it, right?
Yeah.
So Sheldon Keefe is a little bit of a different style of coach than John Cooper. I don't know. I'm agreeing with you in the sense that like the last couple of years he's done these things. I feel like it hurts us more than it helps us when he pulls out this blender. So yeah, it's just the coaching is going to be a big factor. The coaching is a big factor, I think, and not only the blender, but also we saw it more so in the Montreal series because I think we had not as good of players back then. But the yo-yoing of guys in and out of the lineup, I think that's another problem like that we see as well. Because maybe it won't affect Luke Shen as much. I'm just using Luke Shen as an example. But let's say Liljegren were to draw in for Luke Shen for maybe one game. Liljegren doesn't have a bad game because he's been sitting in the press box. He's cold. Comes up now. Luke Shen's coming back in. I don't like. He'll probably have a worse game than if you just had the lineups the same throughout. That's my biggest concern for these the coaching aspect of things. So. I mean, you kind of nailed everything here with Sheldon Keefe and kind of describing who he is as a coach. One thing I need out of him 100% is if you're going to blender, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Just do your best when we have home ice to get Eric Cernak and Ian Cole away from our best guys. Get their shutdown D away from us. That's what I think we need to kind of turn a concern into a positive or something that could help us down the road or like a way for us to win. That's how we do it. We keep our best players away from those guys. I hope we don't blender. I hope our team plays well enough that we don't blender. But if there's one thing I ask of Sheldon Keefe is just be careful of Eric Cernak because I wrote down the playing time, and the games that we won were the games where Eric Cernak played the least amount of minutes against Matthews and Marner. So in the last two games, this like game 6 is a little different. 17 minutes of ice time against Marner, Matthews, and Bunting. Mind you, there was 69 minutes because it was overtime game, but significantly more than the previous games. The previous games were about 6 minutes on average. Game 7, 12 minutes of 5-on-5 time against Matthews and Marner. In the biggest moments, John Cooper wants this guy playing against our best guys. So we need to do our best to keep him away from them. So
yeah, I mean, hey, we're putting some faith in Sheldon Keefe here to get that done. But yeah, I think that goes to the point too where we go with like the depth of it is like, all right, if you switch up and you don't have that top loaded top 6, then now you spread them out a little bit. Now you make John Cooper think a little bit more, okay, how do I match up? Who do I want playing against who? And I think it forces his hand a little bit more to maybe go to a situation where you can't just roll those guys out there against Matthews and Marner, or it makes it easier for Sheldon Keefe to find them different spots. But that's the biggest concern for me right now. I can't even lie. It's Sheldon Keefe. I think Dubas has constructed a very good team here. I think this is the best team we've seen. And to me, it's, again, to use the Moneyball reference, I've used it a lot, but it's when Billy Beane continues to put together the lineup and say Hatteberg at first, and Art says, no, it's my lineup, I'm playing it the way I want. And it's like, it's not necessarily that I think that there's like a huge disagreement between Keefe and Dubas, but Dubas has built a lot of depth, and if you're going to not utilize depth, then you could get burned. And so maybe until you play it the way that it's meant to be played, or that the Moneyball way, then maybe that's when you start seeing success. All right, I hit you with the surprise on the first one with the coach. What's your next biggest concern? Do you have any other big concerns?
Yeah, the only other one, it's I feel like it's a low hanging fruit, but man, goaltending, like I'm so afraid of Andrei Vasilevsky. Like what he's done over the past 5 years, like it's 7 years. How long has he been in the league now? It feels like it's been longer than that. Anyways, he's a bona fide stud. He's like working his way. He's literally put together a Hall of Fame career, and before he's 30. Like I think this guy is I genuinely believe this guy is a Hall of Fame goaltender already. He's consistently been among the best goalies in the league every single year. Maybe he's a few Vezinas short, but I mean, man, he's a stud. The only thing is, I'm praying that this is the year where the wear on the tires finally start to show. And I mean, Vasilevsky has played almost 100 games every year for the past 2 years. There's got to be some give at some point. There's got to be some give, and I'm praying that this is the year. I'm just praying, because, man, if it's not, if he stands on his head and he's his normal self, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough.
So I agree with you, but my concern only comes if the other things have gone wrong ahead, where now it's neutralized through. Because if it becomes neutralized through, you go 6, you're 60, they're 60, somehow they even each other out. Now your top 6, they even each other out, and you're basically in a battle of bottom 6 where they even each other out. you're going to lose the goaltending battle. It doesn't matter how good Samsonov is. I just think you're going to lose that battle with Vasilevsky. I agree with you 100%. My thing is, I'm going optimistically and hoping that the top doesn't get evened out and we find a way to have that edge there. And I think in those situations, Vasilevsky could be the evening factor. And if that's the case and it comes down to him, I'm not as concerned because for some reason, man, I may be an idiot at the end of this. I may be, but I have a lot of faith in Samsonov. I just think that this guy's found his groove. He has the kid. He comes back. He's all positive. He seems like this happy guy who doesn't get too down on himself. He loves Toronto. The guys here, like, he seems to be in a good place mentally. He seems to be in a good environment that he enjoys that's conducive to him personally, his personality. I think that's kind of what we saw with Jack, where Campbell would be lifted up by positive things that were going on. But I think the difference between him and Campbell is that I don't think he takes the negative as bad as Campbell did. And on top of that, I think he's just a better goalie. So I think we're elevated in goaltending this year. Not as concerned, but I do understand the concerns. And again, to me, if it does come down to everything else is a wash, then I'm sitting there with you, dude, biting my nails going, man, we're screwed. Because if it comes down to Vasilevsky versus Samsonov, I don't care how good Samsonov is. And as much as I love the guy, you're losing that battle. You're losing that battle 99 times out of 100. So,
and I'm hoping we get that. Sorry, I'm hoping we get that Fred VanVleet kid bump. I don't know if you remember back in 2019.
There's something about the baby bump.
It's the baby bump. There's something about it. But yeah, I like your points there with Samsonov. You're right. He's been a stud for us, and I think the biggest thing as well is that he's proven that he'll play no matter what, and he'll fight through injury to play. And that, I think, locker room wise and the guys on the ice in front of you playing for you, I think that's an important factor. And I think these guys love playing for Samsonov. So I'm the one thing I asked for Samsonov. I've been asking for it for a couple of years now. I feel like the last time this happened was when we played Boston in the second series. I want to say it was game 5, maybe game 6, maybe it was in the first season. Anyways, that to me was the last time I left a Leafs game saying we should have lost that game, but our goalie won us that game.
With Freddie.
And no disrespect, with Freddie. No disrespect to our previous goalies, but I truly, truly believe we have not had a goalie legitimately steal a game for us yet in the past couple of years with this newer group, and that's what I want from Sammy. That's the one thing I asked for him. That's just one. We need just one game from him, and that makes the whole difference, I think.
And I think he can do it. Yeah,
I think so too.
I agree with you. Okay, I have one last. There's obviously other little minute concerns I have, but I have one last concern. The power play. Last year, the power play went 14% in the playoffs against Tampa. If you look at the 5v5 numbers, look at Campbell against Vasilevsky last year. Their numbers, save percentage, GAA, it was the same. The shots that they faced, Campbell faced 10 less shots than Vasilevsky because he was pulled, and guess what happened? Shalgren faced those exact 10 shots. It was flat out the same across the board, and Tampa beat us by 1 goal at the end of the series in Game 7 there. A lot of that, I think, changes if the power play plays up to expectation. I'm not asking you to go Edmonton and go 35% here. I'm not asking 30. I'm not even asking 25%. But dear God, don't go 14%. Give us 20 and above, please. Give us 20 and above on your power play. If they hit down to 14% where they were last year and it becomes that pathetic, I think you're in trouble, because this is a series where you're going to have prime opportunities to take advantage of with a team where if you stay out of the box, they might not. Because this is a team that drags you into things, and if you manage to stay out of it, you could end up with a lot of power play opportunities, and if you fail to take advantage of them, that's momentum in their corner. That's a way to swing it back for them, where they're going to go back 5-on-5 and have that going in their direction. And then on top of that, I think they have a pretty good power play. I think that when it comes to the biggest moments, they're going to be able to pull that out and kind of elevate it and take advantage. So if your power play is not rocking, I've got concerns. That's a real only other one for me where I'm like, hey, we can't go 14% again, guys. That was pathetic.
Absolutely, and that's the difference in when literally 14% to 20%. I know that sounds like a big jump, but the Leafs average, I don't know the exact number it was the last year. I think they were at 25%. So asking that jump is not too much to ask for, and that's the difference in winning the series, I think. And little fun stat here about the playoffs and penalties, excuse me. The penalty penalties called by referees in the first 4 games. Penalties, the refs call actually more penalties than league average, season average in the first 4 games of the series. So that's kind of where your power play is most effective. And I think the Leafs need to put Tampa away early. So if you can get a hot power play going early on in the series where you get more power play opportunities, it'll be easier to put this Tampa team away quicker. And then as you see the series goes on, power plays become less. There's less power play opportunities. That's just the way the officials officiate the game. Games 1 to 4 above average compared to the season, and then 5, 6, 7 below average. And that's kind of where it gets scary for me, because Tampa has that power play where they really only need one. They only need one, and they can capitalize on it. And then if we need 2, 3, 4, and we're not getting chances there, that's just burning clock for us. And yeah, the later this series goes, the more nervous I get. So
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think those are valid points. But yeah, give me some power plays. Any other concerns for you?
No, not too many concerns. Just those are the real major concerns for me.
Yeah, and like there's obviously some other minor ones that we could come up with, I imagine, but I think those are like the big ones that really stick out and are kind of difference makers. Is there any other X factors that you have that could swing this in favor of the Leafs to win the series?
Yes, biggest X factor for me is going to be our depth. And that's, if you take a look at last year, all of our goals came from our top 6. Sorry, not our top 6, our top 4. Sorry.
Yes.
Other than those guys, David Kampf, I think, scored. David Kampf scored 2, I want to say. Some of our defensemen scored. But where I'm trying to get at with this point is, of the guys who left our team, there was 3 goals between the players who left our team and are not playing for us today in the playoffs than were playing for us last year. Those players were Jake Muzzin, Colin Blackwell, Ilya Mikheyev, Pierre Engvall, Andre Kash, and Wayne Simmons / Kyle Clifford. Sorry. Right. So of those guys, only 3 goals were scored at 5-on-5. I'm not going to count the empty net goals for Ilya Mikheyev. Those don't count for me. Those are layups, right? Anyone could have scored those goals. So Jake Muzzin scored 2 goals. Colin Blackwell scored 1. Of all those depth guys, we got basically no goals from the depth forwards that left us here. We're bringing in Nola Chari. We're bringing in Calle Yarncrook. We're bringing in, Alexander Kerfoot, who's now in the bottom 6. Zach Aston Reese, maybe Matthew Nyes, Sam Lafferty. These guys, all we need out of them is to score more than 3 goals throughout the series. That's all we need. That's what we got last year from the guys that we lost. That's all we're going to need from these guys. And if we're able to do that, I think that's the difference in the series right here. And all these guys are good at scoring, so I'm expecting them to do that. So those are my X factors for this series.
I agree. I had a similar thought on that as things that could swing in our favor is beat them in our bottom 6. Is just like beat them in a bottom 6. I think we have a better bottom 6 than last year. And on top of that, I think our bottom 6 is better than theirs right now. I really do think it is. And so you find a way to get the edge in that, score some goals from the extra guys. I don't really have like an X factor, but I will say this. Our big boys kind of need, and it's not to say that they didn't last year, but I need a game out of these guys where Matthews comes and just says, I'm here to win this game, get on my back. Not really an X factor, but more like, I want to see that. I want to see him show up, him and Marner, and then they just have a night where it's like Tampa can't do anything to keep up with these guys. I need it out of JT. I think we're going to get it out of Willie, but I just want to see the other guys kind of have those, like, we aren't losing this series. And yes, give us the depth goals, but hopefully we don't even need it, because the way that the top guys are playing is just like so dominant that they just say, we are the best players on this team. We are the best players in this series. Whether other people believe that or not, maybe they can just kind of come out and say, we think we are, so we're going to show you we are. That's all I'm asking for out of them. That's it. It's not necessarily an X factor necessarily. I think yours is more of an X factor, but that's kind of that's my ask of those guys. So
yeah, series are won and lost with your top forwards. If they're not there, we're not going to win. Simple as that. So you're right. Yeah. They have to be there.
All right. Final thing to wrap this one up. Series predictions. We can do these quickly, but series predictions of this one. How does this play out? Who wins? How many games? Go ahead.
I mean, as much like I'm taking Leafs in 6. I've been wrong for the past 7 years predicting Leafs series. I have been wrong. And in my heart of hearts, I want to almost take the Lightning as a reverse jinx just so I could be wrong one more year. But no, of course, I'm a Leafs fan. You see the jersey. I'm rocking the Marner reverse retro. Give me the Leafs in 6. I think that's the way it's going to go.
Leafs in 5, buddy.
Let's go.
You win both at home. You win 3 in Tampa. You lose 4 in Tampa. You come home and you close that sucker out in Toronto, in Scotiabank Arena. Good night, Jim Kite. We will see you, Boston, in the second round. That is how this one plays out, Jason. It is just take it over from the beginning. Game 4, OT loss. Game 5, you come back here and you say, no, we're not going through this again. Get it done. And they win on home ice. And finally, the fans have something to cheer about here in Toronto. In Scotiabank Arena, the roof pops off. They have to do renovations ahead of the second series, but you got enough time because you finished it in 5. That's my prediction. Leafs in 5.
I love it. Parade all the way down Yonge Street. Like everyone's
no parades,
but riots. Like
okay, yeah, sure, partying,
partying. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah,
everyone out on the street just having a good time. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Jason, thank you for taking the time to do this. Greatly appreciate it. This has been fun. Hopefully everyone out there enjoyed the breakdown here. If you have any thoughts, concerns about things that were brought up, drop them in the comments below. Let us know your thoughts on our predictions, our concerns. If you have different concerns, if maybe the concerns we brought up you don't have, what are your X factors? What are your lines that you want? Do you like the one Sheldon Keefe has? Do you want them changed up? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe here to the Leafs Digest channel. We're going to have live watch-alongs, live post-games. Jason will be joining me on some of these here. We're going to have as well OG of the Leafs Digest channel, Josh Goody coming back for some of these. So we're going to have a bunch of different things coming up throughout the playoffs. Hopefully we have a long run ahead, but first stream will be a live watch-along of Game 1, so be sure to check that out. Come back here. You're going to want to subscribe, like this video, like this channel, all that kind of stuff as well. If you're looking for more previews, post-game breakdowns, all that kind of stuff, head over to the Rink Rat Report. You can find them on all podcasting platforms, as well as at Rink Rat Report on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And for Jason himself, you can find him at Takes by J on Twitter. That is at Takes by J on Twitter. Great stuff over there at the Rink Report. Jason, I appreciate you doing this today. Appreciate you taking the time. I'm excited for the playoffs, man. So thank you very much for hopping on here.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's a blast as always, and I look forward to seeing all the Leafs Digest diehards in the stream tomorrow. So, yeah, let's do this.
Sounds good. All right, let's do this. Leafs in 5. I mean, honestly, get it done in 4 if you can. But Leafs fans, thank you so much for tuning in here. Hopefully you enjoyed the breakdown. Keep believing.